Good afternoon. And welcome. My name's Pam Vogel. I'm the Human Resources Liaison for College and Community Relations, and helped put together, which I hope you will think is a great lineup of some speakers for you today. You'll learn a little bit about city government. You'll learn about the potential of city internships, and just a little bit about the city of Pittsburgh and what we have to offer. So I want to see by a show of hands who is originally from southwestern Pennsylvania. 1. Wow. 2. Okay. Pittsburgh proper or suburbs? That's okay. All right. How about you? Okay. Yep. Close enough. All right. So everybody else is new to Pittsburgh. That is fantastic. We hope you love our city as much as I do. I'm a lifelong city resident. I grew up in Mount Washington, where all the inclines and things are, and the overlook. You'll get to see those eventually when you're here. I encourage you to take advantage of all of the free amenities that we have to offer here through Pittsburgh and through the city, like our parks. Schelling Park's closest to Pitt, so you'll be able to take advantage of that. And I would like to move ahead and introduce you to our first speaker, Chief of Staff, Dan Gilman. He works for the office, of course, the Honorable Mayor Bill Peduto.
Thank you. Yeah, good morning, or good afternoon, everybody. Introduce a couple people who I think are speaking still after me. Lindsey Powell, who's Assistant Chief of Staff for the Mayor. Haley Platt, who's Special Assistant to the Mayor, and just graduated from Pitt in May, and now full-time with us. So just really quickly, how many people are from Western PA? Just a couple. Awesome. Okay. How many people are from Western PA, New Jersey, Ohio, West Virginia, New York? Kind of this there. That's great. Even more. So I'm going to give you the quick history of Pittsburgh. Very quickly, just the interesting points of where we got to today. Go back to the early 1900s. Obviously, you know this was the rise of steel in industry in the country. At one point, 40% of the wealth of the United States lived in the city of Pittsburgh. It is where the home was of pretty much everything outside of New York and Chicago was Pittsburgh. Fast forward into World War II, there's more steel produced in the city of Pittsburgh than Japan and Germany combined, and we built the world. It will be hard to find a bridge, a skyscraper, or anything else that doesn't have Pittsburgh steel in it somewhere. We became the first city in the world to have a steel company headquartered in a steel building, a glass company headquartered in a glass building, and an aluminum company headquartered in an aluminum building. We were one of the largest cities with Fortune 500 companies, and life was booming here. The Hill District was probably the greatest center of African-American culture outside of Harlem in the entire United States. Negro League baseball was booming in the city of Pittsburgh. The jazz was incredible. Philanthropy was huge. We had world-class investment into museums and into our parks and everything happening. And then the 1970s come along. 1979 happens. What happens in 1979 in Pittsburgh? Anybody? I know it's before all of you were born, but 1979? We win the World Series. We are family. The Pittsburgh Pirates win the World Series. The Steelers win the Super Bowl. And Pittsburgh has the greatest economic collapse of any city in the history of the United States. We lose more population than New Orleans lost after Katrina. We had a higher unemployment rate than Detroit at the height of the auto collapse. We also had the worst debt ratio of any city in the country at the time, as bad as it was in New York when they were on the brink of bankruptcy. The 70s, 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s, every 18-year-old graduated high school, and if they could, got on the first plane, bus, car, hitchhiking, whatever it was, to get out of the city of Pittsburgh. There was no economic opportunity. People talk about how Steeler Nation travels well. Steeler Nation doesn't travel well. We just moved talent out for 40 years, and so there's a lot of Pittsburgh Shore Steeler fans across the country. And then things started to turn around. You start to go into the 2000s and 2010, and things start to really take off. And what set Pittsburgh apart was that money from the early 1900s stayed here. So the money of Carnegie and Frick and Hillman and all of these people went into foundations. And so in those tough years, where our sister cities like Buffalo and Cleveland and Detroit and Toledo and Cincinnati were all struggling the same as we were in the Rust Belt, and we had to make decisions literally of, do you have police officers or do you invest in your parks? The foundations here made it so we didn't have to make that choice. They said, you pave your streets, you keep your police officers and your firefighters, we'll take arts and culture on our backs. So they invested in the parks, they invested in the art scene, which has allowed us to have something like the Andy Warhol Museum and the Children's Museum and the Carnegie Science Center on top of all of our art museums, boom, that other cities like us didn't have. And they took care of a world-class library system with an endowment from Andrew Carnegie. They invested into our parks with the Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy, Schenley Plaza, which is a large area right outside the Pitt Library across from the cathedral. Until 2005, it was a surface parking lot. It's a huge surface parking lot in the heart of campus. It turned into what it is today without any city money. That was all foundations, the universities, the hospital, private donors transforming that space. That was the story of Pittsburgh. It was a partnership to create it. And then things really started to go in our favor. The economy in the country collapses with the end of the Bush presidency economic downturn. And thankfully the city, because our investment had been in hospitals and universities, generally recession-proof. So when you had a housing collapse across the country, ours was minor. When you had unemployment spike, ours was minor. And we were able to kind of ride that wave. People like say, if you don't get invited to the party, you can't have a hangover. It was kind of true of Pittsburgh. We had never had that boom, so it couldn't bust on us. And people started to want to move here because this is where the new revolution was with artificial intelligence and driverless vehicles and the modern robotics movement, all of which coincidentally started in 1979 in Pittsburgh when Carnegie Mellon created the first robotics PhD program in the history of the world in Pittsburgh at that same moment that the economy was collapsing. And it worked out, for us that's kind of what took off. Andrew Moore of Carnegie Mellon said, I'm not leaving, I want to open the Google office here. And that led to the rise of the computer science department, which led to Uber deciding to open here, which led to 5 more autonomous vehicle companies to make headquarters in the city of Pittsburgh. And then at the same time, the millennial generation happened. And millennials just had a very different mindset than previous generations. Number one, greater sense of social responsibility, greater sense of corporate responsibility, greater sense of life balance, of a healthy mind, healthy body mentality, of quality of life and balance, about bike lanes and pedestrian safety and green space and all the amenities that go, and not just kind of where can I get the highest paying job out of college, and own a car, et cetera. And it changed, and Pittsburgh was well poised. And if you look at the cities that are really booming in this country, Nashville, Columbus, Kansas City, Boulder, Austin, Denver, Louisville, Kentucky, Providence, Rhode Island, it's the people who've chosen that the life of New York and Chicago and Silicon Valley and Seattle isn't the quality of life they're looking for because they want more to it. And that's what we've invested in for the last decade, is really doubling down on those things so it becomes a city that the next generation wants to live in. So this city that was really knocked down to its knees economically and lost its population, we went from 750,000 people to 304,000 people. That's how bad things were. We went bankrupt as a city, municipal bankruptcy. It's called Act 47. We filed for that in 2003. Today, second fastest growing population of millennials in the country with a college degree. Third fastest growing population of millennials in the country with an advanced degree. Rated the best restaurant city in America 2 years ago. Rated the best view in America from Mount Washington. Numerous rankings of the best place to buy a home as a young professional, and the best place to retire, and the best place to fall in love. We got all three. I don't know what more you need in life. So it's a great place to start your career. It's a great place to end it and have love in between. It's all happening here, and it's really an amazing transformation. So first of all, welcome, and we're excited to have you be a part of it. But more importantly, and take this to heart, because we've all been in your shoes, them not so long ago, me a little longer ago. Work's going to be heavy. A lot of you are going to have jobs to help pay for college. You probably don't have a car. There are a lot of challenges that make it really easy to just sink yourself into the university. You join a club, you join a fraternity or sorority, you become an RA, you're on one of the athletic teams, whatever it is that you're passionate about, and then you blink and 4 years have gone by and you've only left Oakland 8 times. And you haven't gotten out, you haven't seen the city, you don't understand the community around you, the exciting parts, and the parts of the city that are still a real challenge that we work on every day. How do you create a city for all, recognizing that 1 out of 4 people in the city of Pittsburgh still live below the poverty line and are choosing between putting a roof over their head and food on the table for their kids. Those are the challenges we address. The mayor has one saying that we live by every day, and that's if it's not for all, it's not for us. That's the bottom line of our public policy. But you won't see it if you go from the towers to class and back. Use the buses, use the healthy ride, go out and walk, go explore our parks and our arts and culture, go volunteer in our communities, become a mentor, to a sixth grader in our public school system. Take the time to embrace everything good, bad, ugly, and beautiful about this amazing American city. And number one, I'll bet when we talk again in 4 years, you're going to be looking for a job in Pittsburgh because you want to be a part. And number two, your college years will be that much more fulfilling because you learn a lot in the classroom, you learn a lot from each other, but you learn even more from getting outside of that bubble and learning from the people of a community who have so much rich history and so much pride in where they came from and what this city has to offer. So thank you. I hope you're all incredibly excited. Congratulations on starting at an amazing university, and know that the doors of City Hall are always open to you.
Thank you. I also wanted to recognize that Chief Gilman, when he was Councilman Gilman, you were the first to host Pitt for Pitt DiscoverU Day. So thank you. And we here in the HR department have continued in your stead. Thanks. Wow. I've lived here my whole life, like I said, and I still learn something new every time I hear Chief Gilman or the mayor talk. So it's amazing to me that I can still be amazed. But without further ado, I would like to introduce my department director, Janet Manuel. And she is the Director of Human Resources and Civil Service, and she is also our EEO and Diversity and Inclusion Officer.
Thanks. Good afternoon. I'm going to try and stand still for the cameras. I will try. I make no promises. But welcome. So it was interesting, and thank you, Pam, for asking the question, and I know Chief Gilman had asked the question, how many are originally from this area? Very interesting for me that not many hands were raised, because I, too, am not originally from here. So I'm a transplant, right? What I do want to say about that is I transplanted here, but I'm still here. And so I echo what Chief Gilman stated to you. Congratulations. I wish you the best for school. But my viewpoint ties into what else besides school. And so there will be opportunities for you to have internships, mentorships. My plea to you is, do not forget about the city of Pittsburgh. You will hear great, fabulous news about all the other Fortune 500 companies in the greater Pittsburgh region. And I've worked for some of them, and they are great. However, do not underestimate doing an internship or mentorship or a job shadow with the city of Pittsburgh. Not many opportunities are given for individuals to be able to work for the city that they love and to have an impact. And so working in government, doing an internship in government, doing a mentorship in government is a totally different experience than the private sector. I tend to tell my staff all the time, whenever we are doing any type of recruiting, that the type of work we're doing is just not a rubber stamp. We are not just hiring the next EMT. We are hiring an individual that will make a difference for a neighborhood, that will help transport someone to the hospital so they can get assistance. And that could be your grandmother, your aunt, your uncle, your mom, dad, or sibling. So whenever we do anything for the city, it is beyond just that respective department that we work in. It has such a ripple effect throughout the city that cannot be measured, and you cannot even put a price tag on it. And so you heard from Chief Gilman all the great accolades that the city of Pittsburgh has received, and we will continue to receive more. And yes, we will win another Super Bowl, because I do love the Super Bowl parades, right? But it's more than that. Imagine having the opportunity to attend a great school such as what you are doing now. But then once you complete that, to contribute and give back to that respective area that help plateau you to another level. So later on in the presentations, you will hear from Pam in my department regarding internships, mentorships. Take notes. She'll follow up. She'll send emails just to, make sure you maintain that information. But don't underestimate what working for local government can do. It's so powerful, it's so impactful, and it reaches so many people, far beyond than a lot realize. So we are so excited. I heard from your champion as I was coming in that this is one of the fastest selling activities to be signed up for, and that is great. So 1, you're curious. 2, you're still curious. But 3, I hope what you hear from all the presenters, that not only will your curiosity be satisfied, but you'll be intrigued to continue the expressed interest in the city of Pittsburgh. Thank you so much. I wish you the best, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Director. I totally agree with what Director Manuel has said. She's a great leader for our department, very passionate about the work and employment. And I can honestly tell you, being a lifelong resident, I've been with the city about total 16 years. I had a little break. I started in 1997, and I'm still here. I had a 5.5-year break. I worked with my sister. However, I was amazed at the breadth and width of and the scope of the city and what types of jobs that we have available here throughout the city. It's, you always think of police, fire, EMS when you think of city government workers, or the road crews that are fixing your roads or cleaning them when there's snow in the winter. But we have a lot more than that. And our next speaker works for our Department of City Planning, and she is an urban space specialist. Did I say that correctly? Yes, kind of, sort of. She'll tell you a little bit about what she does. Her name is Shelley Danko-Day, and I would invite her to come up and tell you a little bit about her career, and her department.
Today I learned how to hold a mic. Awesome. So hi, I'm Shelley Danko-Day. I'm actually the Urban Agriculture and Food Policy Advisor for the City of Pittsburgh. I'm in the Department of City Planning in the Division of Sustainability and Resilience. And I've been with the city for 5.5 years. It'll be 6 years in April. And I love city planning. I had no idea that that was my perfect place to work and have a career. How many of you love maps? How many of you are like nerds about bike lanes? Yeah, these are things that city planning did and does. Urban design, that kind of stuff. Do you guys all know what you're going to do with your careers? Have you picked a major? How many of you have picked a major? Oh, okay, that's good. Good, a lot of you have. That's awesome. Well, if any of it is urban planning, or there's a lot of different things that happen in city planning. So city planning is really an incredible place to be. It's, as my predecessor used to say, it's the catbird seat. Does anyone know what that means? It's like the top of a ship where you could see everything. Anyway, it's a really pivotal place in the city government structure. Everything that happens in the city goes through city planning first. So we like to joke that it's like things that happen in city planning stay in city planning, like Las Vegas East. Anyway. So we have a bunch of different internships there. We deal with resident permit parking. The Americans with Disability Act is enforced through our department. We have zoning in our department. The open space planning, that was my original title, open space specialist, but nobody knew what that meant. So we started saying urban agriculture and food policy advisor. It's more explanatory. But that deals with, the city has a lot of vacant land. Since Chief Gilman was saying that we lost half our population back in the 70s and 80s. So we've been left with almost 7,000 vacant lots that the city has taken responsibility for because we had to demolish buildings, demolish houses, because they just started to fall apart for public safety reasons. We had to tear them down. Now we're left with this vacant land, and we just cannot keep up on the maintenance of it. So we designed a program called the Adopt-A-Lot program, which allows people to access that land for food, flower, or rain gardens, and it creates more community space and green space, and it's really great. We've got 150 lots adopted out, and there's some really great projects. People are growing a lot of food and a lot of flowers, and it's nice. So that would be the food policy internship. We have 2 environmental planners in our division in strategic planning, and they do environmental stormwater and land use policy. We have people who do grants, neighborhood planning. There's a lot of stuff happening in the neighborhood planning, comprehensive planning. And then we have some specialized internships, like with sustainability and resilience. We're looking at people who are focused on energy, people who are focused on conservation. There's an art and archival internship. GIS, does anyone here do GIS? Do you know what GIS is? Okay. There's some nods. Well, we have an entire division that is just dedicated to GIS. There are 5 people in our department who do GIS. So we have a couple internships with that available, and also other data type positions. And then we have law internships, because a lot of the policy of legislation, it's all law. So being able to speak some legalese is helpful in a lot of different ways. So if you're looking for an internship, like our internships city planning has been doing internships for over 20 years now, and they were designed not to just be like filing and copying. We want interns who are going to really dig into a project and give us their opinion. We need the youthful energy that you bring to city government. City government is for the people, by the people, and you are the people, and we need your help to help bring the city into the 21st century and keep it going there. So it's really important that we have interns coming in and helping us with projects. We couldn't do our job without you guys. So if you're interested, Pam will have information. There's Pam. Pam will have information about this. I'm sure you'll get emails about when our openings are happening. Right now we're interviewing for the fall, but I'm assuming you guys are like way overwhelmed with everything else new to even think about an internship right now. Don't know how your program works, but I would be overwhelmed if I were you. But we're here, and if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Pam, again, will give that information out, I'm guessing. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Shelley. City planning, I have to tell you, takes, at a minimum, typically every semester, at least 15 interns. Sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's a little more. So they really do a great job with giving students meaty projects. So our next speaker today is Assistant Chief of Staff, Lindsey Powell, and she is from the Mayor's office, of course, Mayor William Peduto. So come on up, Lindsey.
So good afternoon, folks. I'm going to be brief. I know people have been trying to sell you on Pittsburgh, and you're already sold already. You're already coming here and staying, so we got that part covered. Again, my name is Lindsey Powell. I serve as the Assistant Chief of Staff to the Mayor, and largely what I work on is equity and inclusion issues in the legislative and policy space. So not so much who we hire, but more how do you make Pittsburgh more equitable and accessible? How do you ensure that all of our neighborhoods are opportunity rich? How are you ensuring that a kid from Beltuver has the same opportunities as a kid from Brookline? And so that kind of takes me all over the place. I work on a lot of issues of economic development, housing, women and families, public art. So it depends on the day, which is exciting. I particularly love local government because you get to see your work in front of you every day. So I was told to talk a little bit about my career path as well. I'm not from Pittsburgh. I'm actually from Brooklyn, New York, and found my way to Pittsburgh by school, similar to hopefully a lot of you folks. I've always been passionate about government. It was the one thing that always wanted to do, just because for me, it was a way to make immediate and direct change. Someone had asked me recently, like, how did you know you wanted to get into government? And I remember it's because my parents took me to a protest when I was younger. It was, I don't know if anyone's familiar with New York City local politics, but the stadium that Jay-Z is a part of, oh my God. It is a big stadium, and it is right, Barclays, there you go, Barclays Stadium. They used eminent domain to actually clear the land to ensure that the stadium came to full fruition. And a lot of homes were destroyed. It was a huge upheaval in the community, not just for the homes, but changes in transportation, kind of opening up a neighborhood and a community that had been very kind of quiet and pretty insular. There were also concerns about raising values of home, people being displaced, largely gentrification. All those things happened. But my parents took me to the protest, and I remember being so excited by the energy and seeing like a local council member talking about like, so here's what we're gonna do, here's the plan. And I was like, I like that. I like what she's doing. I'm really interested in this. So I've had a lot of opportunities to work in government. I worked for President Obama in his Office of Legislative Affairs, largely on criminal justice reform. I worked on Capitol Hill as well for Hakeem Jeffries. But for me, I love local politics. Local politics, again, is where you get to see your 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours a day right in front of you. So I can point to things that we've done as a team to ensure that families get to stay in place. I can point to projects we worked on to make sure that some of our older residents are connected to services. And so Pittsburgh, as everyone has said, is a very special city because we believe in transformation. As Chief Gilman and everyone else has said, we've seen some rough times, but we're at a space now where we can really think about what does building a city for all look like? And not just the, bright and shiny diversity, but getting into those really difficult conversations. As you start to explore Pittsburgh and get to know the city, you'll find a lot of spaces where there have been historic and systemic wrong. And as a city, we've been trying to hold ourselves up to the mirror and hold ourselves accountable to residents. I'm working on a lot of projects as well as several people in the city to really address, again, how do you make a Pittsburgh for all? Again, if it's not for all, it's not for us, is something that we say constantly here, and working with communities to ensure that that's not just a slogan, it's not a pretty thing that the mayor can say to get reelected or to get votes, but it's something that's at the core of what we do and what we believe in. Internships are awesome. I have done a million internships, and I really value them. And as someone who works here closely with interns in our office, again, we try to make it meaningful. I remember as an intern, folks being like, well, why don't you sort these papers that I'm never gonna look at? And feeling like I was wasting a summer or wasting some time, wasting experience. And so here what we try to do is really put interns at the forefront of a lot of our projects. An intern that we had recently worked on a legislative packet for me addressing gender equity. We've had people kind of design our public art, revamp our public art process, so you get some really meaty things to do here. All right, well, welcome to Pittsburgh. Enjoy your time here. Food-wise, there is so much good food out here, so don't eat all the ramen and the Kraft mac and cheese in your dorms. Get out there and try and explore as much of the food scene as possible. And welcome to Pittsburgh.
Lindsey and I talk about that all the time. Thank you. Actually, she wasn't expecting to make it in today. Lindsey, thank you so much for spending time with us. All right. Next up, from the mayor's office as well, is James Hill. He is Mayor Peduto's executive assistant, and he will tell you a little bit about him and his career. And he was a former intern with us, with the city, and a little bit about this room, because the tour and the speech that he gives about this room is fantastic. I hope you enjoy it.
Cool. So what Pam said, I grew up here in Pittsburgh, a neighborhood called Highland Park, not far from Oakland in the east end of the city. I went to high school at a luxury condominium not far from your campus now, at the old Shenley High School at the corner of Bigelow and Center. And I've always had, at least I like to think, a I actually used to want to be an architect for a very long time, but math is not my forte. And the mayor jokes that if you become a politician, you don't need numbers. For a long time, I wanted to do that. And then my mother, she worked in the Department of Veteran Affairs right down the street at the Federal Building. And at that kind of like core level, I got a great appreciation for what it means to be in the red tape, per se. You know, the day-to-day work of trying to and occasionally making life better for somebody by using government for, you know, its better purposes. I legitimately believe that while it is certainly not perfect, that when used effectively, you know, these governments exist to help the people. And the example I always give is they're called amendments, not commandments, for a reason. So it's supposed to merge and transform, and I believe if we all engage in that, you know, you really can make a difference in a place. In Pittsburgh, for instance, you know, I think we've seen it very, very rapidly. You know, when I was in high school and you know, a kid, have any of you guys got to explore the East End? I know it's literally like your third day based upon Twitter. When you do, there's a neighborhood in the East End, not far, again, just right down Fifth Avenue from Pitt, called East Liberty. East Liberty. I hate when I slip into the Pittsburgh accent. 10 years ago, East Liberty was one of our desolate, you know, most, you know, crime-stricken neighborhoods in the city. And now, for the first time, we always say that Pittsburgh is experiencing growth, and we don't really know what to do with that. You know, so we're dealing with the issues of gentrification and creating affordable housing. But while they are dangerous, I also think they're effective ways for us to think creatively about cities as a whole. And so I think we've been in the best position, at least in my lifetime, certainly, and to see ourselves really getting down there and, you know, trying to solve problems. You know, it's not the blanket sweeps that solved things long ago. When my grandmother moved to Pittsburgh from Barnwell, South Carolina, back in the, I don't know, I should know how old she is, but, you know, she's an old lady. Fun fact, by the way, her and James Brown are both from this town. It has like 300 people, so our family legend is what's the likelihood we're not related to James Brown somehow, you know, at least on a cousin basis. When she came to Pittsburgh, you know, during the height of the steelmaking days, she got to witness firsthand, and Dan Gilman, who I know was in here earlier, talked about this as well, demolition and development through wrecking balls. They went through neighborhoods like the north side of our city where Heinz Field is and demolished neighborhoods, and they went through the East Liberty area and tried to create the suburban influence in cities, and they went through the area called the Lower Hill, which sits right behind downtown, and wiped out neighborhoods entirely. And I just think it's such an amazing experience to get to be able to be involved in righting those wrongs and to be able to work in a government and for a mayor who I appreciate very much so, that recognizes and is trying to make up for decades of issues. I met the mayor when I was in high school, when Shenley was closing, the school that's the condominiums now during, I ramble around a lot, but to put that into context, in 1950, the city of Pittsburgh itself, not including any of its suburbs, was home to 670,000 residents. Today, on a good day, we have 305,000. So half the population, we have, you know, a surplus of public schools, we have a backlog of infrastructure, all that stuff. So it was called the right-sizing plan at the time. And Shenley was one of the victims of that. We were all trying to save the school. It was a historic landmark. Andy Warhol went there, America's first $1 million high school, which is one of those like weird things because there wasn't a lot to do in the 30s. So, you know, that was like encompassed your day because you heard about this $1 million high school. And the mayor was on city council at the time. He served for 20 years on city council. I joke I was just present enough not to be annoying, where we kept in touch over the years. I'd shoot him an email here and there. I went to college at Point Park University, just across downtown here. And my senior year, he was just becoming elected, or it just was announced he was running for mayor again. I walked into this room. Council meetings are open to the public, you know, so you can come sit in these chairs and spit your 3 minutes of utter nonsense to city council. Depending on what's going on, we have our regulars, and then we have the people who show up when there are really big issues going on. And I sat through the meeting, and I walked up to the councilman who represented where I lived at the time in the District 6, which is a smidgen of Oakland, downtown, half of the north side, the Hill District, and a bit of the east. And his name is Dan Lavelle, and I said, you know, I'm a young person, I'm looking to hang around. Can I like come in your office a couple days and, you know, intern or something? He went, sure. Again, I joke I was just present enough not to be annoying, where when the mayor was about 7 months into his first term, his then chief of staff, Dan was also a city councilman before he was chief of staff, and he was on council at the time, said, did you want to get coffee? And I joked, the rest is history. And I've really enjoyed working for the mayor, and, you know, just the trajectory from from being an intern to following him around everywhere. So the bulk of my job is I accompany the mayor to all of his public events and things, and it's called the Body Man or things like that in other cities, and special projects as assigned. I tend to joke I also get all of the first lady duties because the mayor's unmarried, so I love tours and Christmas is my time. I was just on the phone talking to our city forester about where we're going to get the Christmas tree from this year. Real critical stuff. This is what keeps the people up at night. And correspondence and things like that, and it really is just an amazing experience every day to get to, I never thought, if I've been in this position 5 years this November, 4 or 5, being on first name basis with some of the big corporate wigs and Sidney Crosby, we have facial recognition. We're not on names yet, but we look at each other and smile, and that's enough for me, you know what I mean? We really get to meet amazing people, do amazing things, see amazing things, and again, actually for a split second, feel like we're making things a little bit better, especially, I'm not going to presume any of your political leanings, but I feel like our generation generally is of a different generation than our parents were, and a different generation than, even our aunts and uncles who might not be that much older for sure, and I think just the momentum of this generation is going to be really powerful, and I enjoy getting to be a part of that on the local level, because I feel like I always say Pittsburgh is the biggest small city in America, just big enough where when you're doing stuff, people take notice and you can actually, make a wave, but just small enough where you might actually be able to see the effects every day, in a New York or Los Angeles, when there's 11 million people, it's a lot harder sometimes to see the results, and you're looking more for data and percentages, and you don't really get to see that. But I think every day here we get to see the city change a little bit more, and it really is incredible, and I enjoy it so deeply. So welcome to the City County building, home to every mayor since Joseph Armstrong in the year 1915. Every piece of furniture in this room, the chairs you're sitting in, were all built with the building, designed by a guy named Henry Hornbostel. He designed our building, Carnegie Mellon's campus just up the road, and Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Hall. When you're headed out, try to keep your mind locked on some of the patterns that you see in this building, because they pretty much repeat at Soldiers and Sailors. He had a very distinct style. Our building is unique because it's the only one where he designed all the furniture. All the chairs in the mayor's suite and in the council offices and here in the chamber are all done by Hornbostel. The walls are all inlaid walnut, so they're actually when you're leaving, you can feel each individual brick of the castle and the feathers of the eagles headed out. And the walls from the wainscoting up are stretched canvas, so they're giant individual paintings. The closest thing to magic I ever saw was we had these walls restored 2 summers ago now. There were legit just slashes in some of these, and this lady came in, and then there just weren't slashes anymore. I don't know how you restore art and things like that, but it's the closest thing to magic I ever saw. And then on the ceiling and all the ornate plasterwork in the outer rim, in the reeds, are the names of all the municipalities that joined together to create the present-day city of Pittsburgh. Some of them are still neighborhoods today. Others have since been renamed. And in the inner rim are the names of all of our fine and fair mayors of Pittsburgh. It starts with Mayor Ebenezer Denny, who was the city's first mayor in 1816. For some reason, it zigzags back and forth. I don't know who chose that. Goes down that wall, and Mayor Peduto is there. And there's still one really old guy in Public Works who comes up and paints the new mayor's names on every 8 or 12 years. He gets up there on the thing and he still hand paints everybody's name on that. It's I don't know what we're going to do when he retires. He's a really good guy. In general, this building is shared between the city of Pittsburgh and the county of Allegheny. Despite my urging, we're not a combined city-county government, so the lines get a little blurred. This building was supposed to be the unification of the two. So it's this Pittsburgh City Hall pretty much from 1 to 6, and then half a 9 on the back. And then a large portion of the county court system sits on 7 and 8, and then another half a 9 is theirs as well. We have another auxiliary building that's just behind this building to the left, but we actually just sold that, and we're going to be moving to a building just across the Boulevard of the Allies for another half of the city's departments and operations and things like that. It's a cool place, cool job. I enjoy it a lot.
Hi, everyone. My name is Haley Platt, and I'm going to stand. I'm too short for this. I am the new special assistant to Mayor Peduto. So I am the counterpart to James, and we are the team that supports Mayor Peduto, and we're with him every single day, all day, even the weekends. So I am probably the newest addition to the city, yet alone the mayor's office. So I started about 3 months ago as an intern. Mayor Peduto brought me in to train as an intern for taking over my new job. I graduated from Pitt in April with a triple major in Russian, French, political science, with a certificate in Russian and Eastern European studies. So if anybody's interested in being a linguist, send me an email. So I am not from Pittsburgh. I'm from Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia. I moved to Pittsburgh 4 years ago this week, and I had been to Pittsburgh once, and my only mission coming here was to get far away from home. So I moved to Pittsburgh knowing no one, just coming for university. And are you taking over, James? Okay. So I came to Pitt. I was interested in paleontology and French language. I stuck with French, lost the science pretty quickly. Up until my junior year, I wasn't really interested in politics at all. I met the mayor the summer after my sophomore year of college, working at a bar, and we kept in touch. More
suspicious than it is.
Yeah. And he was very supportive of me looking into jobs once I graduated college. So about 2 months before I graduated, I had no clue what I wanted to do. I had applied for a couple jobs, got a couple jobs in DC, got a couple jobs here. Mayor Peduto offered me a job, and he jokes around that he convinced my parents and me to stay in Pittsburgh, but it really didn't take much convincing because I really, truly learned to love Pitt and Pittsburgh over the past 4 years. So I will be here for the foreseeable future, working for the mayor.
So one last thing from me, if you guys, as I finish up before Avi talks here, is I can't impress enough the importance on taking advantage of Pittsburgh while you're here. We find often culturally one of the things that happens is that Pitt becomes its own ecosystem. It's okay to leave campus. It's okay to explore the city, to go to other neighborhoods, to go hang out in other areas. Not saying you shouldn't hang out at Pitt a lot. It's a great place to have, but there's just so many other areas to explore in the town, so many neighborhoods and cool restaurants and other places and other parks to go explore. So really just take advantage of all that and get to enjoy the city.
Thank you, James. Appreciate it. And thank you, Haley. Yeah. And I will share email addresses. I have all of your email addresses, so I'll send out a little communication probably sometime next week because I have a busy day tomorrow. I forgot earlier to share with you that I am also a Pitt alum from many, 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 many moons ago. And I graduated 36 years ago from Pitt. Long time. I'm older than most of your parents, I'm sure. But I love Pitt still to this day. I love basketball, the football team. I go through the campus, and I'm still amazed at the different changes that are going on, and it's still a great school. My best friend's daughter, I went to high school with her. First grade. From first grade, we went to Pitt together. Her daughter graduates from Pitt this year, so big Pitt supporter. Our next speaker is going to be Avram Chernoff. I call him Avi. And he is a staff engineer for our Department of Mobility and Infrastructure. Lindsey Powell mentioned earlier about us really having good projects for folks, and the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure was mentioned about our safe driving campaign. That was one of our interns projects this past year, and Avi works for that department. So I would like to have him come up and tell you a little bit about himself, and he is also a former intern.
Anyway, as Pam said, my name is Avram Chernoff. You can call me Avi. I work for the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure. That's a mouthful, but we just call it DOMI. And we are responsible for all of the mobility and infrastructure in the city of Pittsburgh. Anything that moves, anything that you walk on, anything that the cars work with, the traffic signals, the bridges, the ped bridges, the bike lanes, all of that is under our jurisdiction. I, as an engineer by trade, civil engineer, Penn State graduate, class of 2017, with a structures concentration. So I work particularly on bridges, retaining walls, landslides. We have a lot of those, I'm sorry. And that's generally my jurisdiction within the department. Other sides of the department, we do streets, we do sidewalks, we do traffic. We also do detours, closures. We do, as far as Pam did mention, safe driving. We have a goal of which we have 0 pedestrians killed in accidents. That is something that we are looking for, Vision Zero. These are the kind of things that my department tries to meet as people are walking, as people are driving, any form of transportation that you can think of. Our goal is to reduce accidents citywide. That's a very, very, very important goal to us. And as we are constantly reforming intersections, trying to fix bridges that are under rehab contracts, and even keeping roads safe from landslides, these are constantly in our thoughts. For myself, I've always wanted to be a civil engineer. I grew up here in this city. I'm from Pittsburgh, Squirrel Hill, and I always looked at all the bridges. It was something that was very fascinating to me. You know, we are the city of bridges after all. And when I grew up, decided, okay, I'm gonna go to East Hills Elementary School. It's a very nice school, language program. Not around today, unfortunately. And then after I went on from there, I went into Frick International Studies Academy. It's now known as SciTech. It's in Oakland. Anybody familiar with that school? It's sort of around some of the Pitt dorms there. You may see some people, 6th, 7th, 8th graders walking around the O, probably getting some fries or something like that. And then I went on to high school, Taylor Alderdice. I found myself gravitating towards math and science. Those were the things I felt strong in, even though my dad's a writer. And then I went on to Penn State, where I knew I wanted to study civil engineering. It was something that, I don't know, I just had in me from the very start. And it's okay, like, not to know what you want to study, but it's very important to ask the questions to the people that are important to you, to your advisors, to your teachers, to take those classes that aren't necessarily where you think you might want to go, because you may want to go there. And, you know, it's okay to be unsure. And as I moved through Penn State, taking my civil engineering classes, I found that I was very, very interested in structures particularly. As an engineer, a civil engineer, you have general concentrations. You could go into environmental, you could go into construction, you could go into transportation. There's also estimating. I didn't find myself too good with numbers, but what I did find about myself particularly was that I had a knack for structures. I had a knack for structural analysis. Looking at all the bridges in this city, there were trusses, there were beams, there were cantilevers, there were suspensions, and everything about it just fascinated me. So I said, I need an internship. I need to get more exposure. I need to seek something out here. And I went to a lot of career fairs. I went to Penn State career fairs. You know, I went to local career fairs. I looked around, and I went to engineering ones. I signed up for a lot of different organizations. I was a part of NSBE. I was a part of SHEP. These are engineering organizations nationwide. And I really wasn't getting the experience that I thought I needed to progress myself as an engineer. I came to a Pittsburgh Promise career fair. Is anyone familiar with Pittsburgh Promise? No? Pittsburgh Promise is an organization that helps students who have gone to Pittsburgh public schools. They help them through tuition, grants, money, scholarships, and they host, you know, events where people can come meet students, meet employers, have others like myself talk to them, inspire them, give them something that they can think about, take home, talk to their friends and family about. And that's when I met Pam for the first time. And I remember explicitly telling Pam, you know, Pam, I don't see any of these engineering companies that registered for this event. And it was a little disappointing. And I showed Pam my resume, and she said, well, you know, let me see what I can do. I'm going to pass this along to some people. And no sooner than about 2 weeks after that event, I received a call from Pat Hassett, who was a monumental person here at the city of Pittsburgh, particularly in my department. He said, hey, I have your resume in front of me, I'd like to have a phone interview. What time is good for you? I said, right now. He said, okay, well, let me pull one of my staff members. And I sat there on the phone and I told him about my troubles in finding an internship and getting to where I wanted to be. And he said, well, why don't you come and intern for us? We have this department here. You're a civil engineer. That's what you're studying. I was a sophomore at the time. And I did. And I came in and I absolutely loved it. I loved it. As many people say, our department, DOMI, we have a lot of stuff going on. We have so many projects going on, and we're all pretty swamped. It's taken a lot out of our staff to keep up, and as James mentioned earlier, delegation can be hard. The ability to pass work along can be difficult. Everyone has a tendency to see something through to the very end and to do it themselves. And as an intern working for DPW at the time, which is now DOMI, I received a lot of work and a lot of projects. And it was something that stuck with me my entire summer that I was working for them. That was the summer of 2015. I worked from May, after getting out of school, until August, the day before I went back to school. 40 hours a week, full-time engineering intern. And I loved it so much that I applied for the internship position the following summer in 2016. That interview was very nice as well. I spoke with Pat, a former boss, and new hires about coming back and returning and continuing my internship. Of course, I was accepted, and again, I was given more responsibility. Responsibilities that I enjoyed highly and still hold dear to me today. I was put on a project, stormwater drainage project, where I designed a drainage system that had been well needed along a road in an area that was constantly receiving landslides. That project was unfortunately not completed during that time. It was a little disheartening, but it was an experience that I really enjoyed. And at the end of that summer in 2016, I returned to Penn State, and I completed my degree in 2017, graduated with a civil engineering degree, concentration in structures. And again, I went straight back to my internship with the city of Pittsburgh, and I worked from 2017 until January 8th, 2018, where I received my full-time job offer as a staff engineer working for the city. And that moment when I received my offer, it was, I was speechless. Not in the sense that I didn't think I would receive an offer, because I had enjoyed the time that I spent there so much. The people knew me, I knew them. We had developed a connection. It was something that time and effort into an individual, that they knew who I was. They were understood that this is someone who's serious about working for the city, and we want to hire them. And I sat down for my interview for my full-time job, and it was a little comical, because my mother, she told me, oh, okay, yeah, you don't need to wear a tie, you don't need to wear a jacket, you know these people so well, they know you, what are you doing that for? Why are you getting dressed up? I was down in my suit, I had everything on, I was looking fresh, and and she convinced me to just be a little bit more casual. And I walked into the interview for my full-time position, and my bosses, they just kept, oh, what's this? You don't got a tie on? You don't wear a tie to an interview? What's wrong with you? And I was like, what do you mean, what's wrong with me? You guys know me? Do I need to wear a tie? It was very comical. I mean, it was it was like, you know, family members, like joking around like your brother or sister. And that's when it kind of clicked in me that getting that initial internship, getting that ability to sit down and talk with somebody about what I wanted to do and the directions I wanted to be in and where I wanted to see myself down the line. It's an investment that you make. And when you look for an internship, you really do want to look for the place that you're going to be working, because it's an investment. I mean, you're going to put in your time and you're going to put in your hours. You're going to be there. You're going to be working hard. Sometimes you're going to be working on something that you deeply care about, and you may not get a chance to finish it before the summer is over. And you have to think to yourself, am I going to be able to return here next summer and work on the same thing, or do I want to go somewhere else? And I think exposure is important. I think seeing different things is very important. But I also think that when you choose to go for an internship, if you choose to go for an internship with the city, talk to a lot of people, see if you can shadow, see if you can find a mentor, someone who will look after you, someone who will say, hey, where do you want to be? I will help you get there. You know, it doesn't have to be engineering. It doesn't have to be what you think you want to do. But you can do that, and you could find those great things. And that's what made this job so special to me. That's what made my time as an intern so special to me, is that I made my intentions clear, and never once was I told, oh, well, you know, I don't know if that's possible. You know, people looked at me and they said, okay, well, we'll see what we can do. You know, we'll see what we can give you. We'll see what projects we can work on. And here I am now as a full-time staff engineer with the project that I designed as an intern in construction and almost completed. And hopefully with the stormwater drainage that I had designed, you know, there won't be any more landslides on that road. There's no diversion of water over the hillside anymore. Everything was done, and it was like, wow, like this is something that I created as an intern, I was a part of as an intern, and now it's physically there, it's in the ground, like I can see it. And it was a very nice feeling, it's a very gratifying feeling. And I'm still doing that today. It's something that, you know, I hold very dear to myself and very dear to my department as well. Yeah. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Avi. We have one more speaker for you here today, and he works for my department, Human Resources. I would like to invite Jordan Jenkins to come up and talk with you a little bit. He was our intern this summer and just landed a full-time job 2 weeks ago.
How's everyone doing? That's good. I'm gonna try to be brief because I was in y'all's position not too long ago. I just graduated in May from Penn State University. I'll get more in depth with that as I talk more. But as Pam had mentioned, my name is Jordan Jenkins. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh. My community, the community I was raised in was mentioned a few times, which is the Hill District area. What is it? They say he said second most historically cultured community in America. But yeah, so bear with me. My high school that I came from, it was about 200, 300 students. I graduated number 3 in my class. And I went on to Penn State University main campus. So my freshman year was like, it was just crazy. It was one of the worst, academically, it was one of the worst, I would say, years I ever had as far as education goes. And it wasn't even like that I was partying or anything. I just wasn't prepared as far as like studying, taking notes in class, things like that. I thought it was just going to be like high school. It was just going to be a breeze and whatnot. But I ended up moving on to my sophomore year with a cumulative GPA of 1.4. So being that was one of my worst, that was my worst academic year that I've ever had, I told myself that I wasn't going to stoop that low again. So I just promised myself, like, since then, I'm going to just keep trying to elevate and get my GPA up to the highest I could. And being that my GPA was 1.4, I was on academic probation because you had to be at least a 2.0 to, I think they said, to keep all of your scholarships and whatnot. So I didn't fully understand what academic probation meant. So what I thought was that I was gonna have to pay for school out of pocket, like out of like just cash on my own. And I was just like, that's a lot of money. It was $16,000 a semester at the main campus. So I ended up transferring to a branch campus, Penn State, Greater Allegheny, which is where I graduated from my sophomore year. And it was okay. Let's see. I came across an academic advisor because I had, my mind's just like, but yeah, talked to an academic advisor on campus, and she had told me that I still have a chance. Well, I still have my scholarships available and things like that. So I was decided to commute from home because I don't live too far. The Hill District, well, the Penn State Greater Allegheny is about 45 minutes away from downtown, and so it's about 45-minute bus ride from home to the campus. And as I've done that for a few weeks, and then I started to get the hang of everything, and I was like, I want to get the full college experience. So I decided to move on campus, and from there, it gave me more opportunity to work on, focus on my schoolwork and things like that. So skipping to my senior year, given a brief of those sophomore and junior year, my GPA ended up increasing. Started getting like 3.5. It was just going up like 3.2, 3.4, 3.6, and whatnot. And I ended up graduating with my goal for my senior year, when I got to my senior year, my goal was to graduate with an overall 3.0 GPA. And I was slowly working up each year. So my senior year came, and I buckled down on everything. I ended up ending my spring semester, graduating with a 3.845, and I boosted that up to 2.94, but I rounded up to a 3.0. So yeah, and it just opened my eyes to me setting a goal for myself, which could be like something you all could learn from, is to like set a goal with intentions. When you like just focus and work hard on something. So yeah, and a few weeks after graduation, I ended up getting a letter from the campus saying that I had made the dean's list. So that was like even more of like made me happier to hear that. So moving on from that, I ended up doing an internship here with the city of Pittsburgh through Partner for Work, which is a local organization here. And it was a 8-week internship, and Pam was my supervisor for that. So I just worked as best as I could throughout those 8 weeks, and I ended up being here where I am now. So it was a great opportunity to receive that, and that was all. If anyone has any questions about college or whatever it may be, the transition after graduating from college to the real world, adult life, or whatever it may be, I may be able to answer that question. And I also then, you had mentioned the position, which is talent acquisition coordinator. So if any of you may not know, talent acquisition coordinator is just like a fancy name for recruiter. So I've just been I've worked with social media engagement, trying to increase engagement through social media, creating flyers as far as like advertising what positions we have that are offered, and it's a lot of positions because we have openings every week. We post openings every Monday, so it's a lot of busy work. It's an adjustment as well. So if you have any questions, I'll be here, so you just stop by. So my major is in business marketing and management. To talk more about that, actually, my major at Penn State main campus was electrical engineering, but I quickly found out like that's not for me. So, for those that are undecided and whatnot, just take everything day by day or whatever it may be. I would say, because that's all you can do. Any other way to deal with not knowing what major you want to go to, or any major you want to decide on, just take the time, reflect on what you've done, what you did like to do when you were younger, and also I would say try to be, as far as reflecting, be more self-aware of what you like to spend your time in, and that would help a lot. So yeah, that's all I have for now. And again, as I said, if you have any questions, come to me.
Thank you, Jordan, especially since we kind of put you on the spot yesterday to come up and talk with everybody. We've been here for an hour and a half, so I'm going to try to get you wrapped up here in the next couple minutes. I did want to talk to you about internships. I wanted to tell you first a little bit about city departments. I want to step away from the screen. We have 3 elected offices. The mayor, of course. Our city controller is Michael Lamb. And we have 9 city council members. Our city is broken up into 9 city council districts, and we have an elected official that represents each district. And these are all of our departments. We mentioned city planning was here today, human resources, office of the mayor, mobility and infrastructure. We also have everything else that's up here. A citizen police review board. We have a commission on human relations. We have an equal opportunity review commission, finance department, office of management and budget, so for you finance folks. We have those types of jobs as well. Innovation and performance is our IT department. Law, municipal investigations, parks and recreation, permits, licenses, and inspections. They make sure that people who are doing building or making changes to structures in our area are doing so legally, and they need plans for that. We also have a large public safety department, which includes, of course, police, fire, EMS, and animal care and control. And they have an administration bureau as well, and we actually have our own personal Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management within our Public Safety Bureau just for the city. And our Public Works Department, of course, it includes administration, the folks that are behind the numbers and the personnel and everything in the department. But we also have a Bureau of Environmental Services. Those are the folks that pick up our trash and recycling every week. Facilities that take care of our buildings and operations is everything else. Street cleaning, snow removal, we have carpenters, everything. We run the gamut with positions. We can pretty much hire anybody within any major. There's a couple that we don't. Chemists, we don't have a lot of chemistry folks. Need for chemistry, but I always point people to our department of, it's not a department, but it's the Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority. They have chemists, I'm sure. And we don't have any nursing or medical type positions other than paramedics and EMT. So I encourage you to look through the city. If you're going to be staying in Pittsburgh for an internship, I do have a little City of Pittsburgh cup for you, and there's a little business card in there that tells you how to apply for internships. Our regular website is pghjobs.net. That takes you all of our main positions that we're recruiting for. Now you have to hit the menu button and go to internship opportunities. And there are a few posted already, as my director pointed out earlier. They are on our website for fall. I'll be posting internships probably in October or November for spring positions. And then next February, end of January, beginning of February, we'll be posting for summer positions if anybody's staying in Pittsburgh. I know most of you aren't from here. You may go home your first, after you first finish your first school year. But if you're staying in Pittsburgh anytime during the summer, we hire anywhere from 100, like on the low end, 80, 85 to maybe 110 interns every summer that work throughout city departments. And I encourage you to give us a try if there's anything of interest for you here today. I wanted to share with you two last things. Number one, we had a gentleman here last year. His name's Tyler, and he was intrigued by a speech he heard from our former executive director of the Commission on Human Relations, Carlos Torres, and Tyler reached out to Carlos, and he did some volunteer work for the department and worked as an unpaid intern, and he's starting a paid intern position this in a couple of weeks. So that's just another example of how things work, how it's good for you to network. I encourage all of you, there are many different majors here today, talk to each other, exchange numbers. As Avi said, even if you have a friend that's not in with your major, you can reach out to within your major, but sometimes those other folks can just help give you a fresh perspective on an idea as well. Take advantage of your academic advisors. I will share emails and everything with you today. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time as well. You'll have my email. But just remind me where I met you. And I will try to help you with whatever you need. I am forever the recruiter. I'm always asking people what they're interested in, even though that's not really part of my job now, but I always usually can find some way, somehow, to point you in a direction to look for a position or an internship. So I thank you for coming. We are wrapped up today.